So as for the question, would I recommend the book? Absolutely. But as I said, for anyone who does have any triggers when it comes to slightly darker books, I would advise going to the author's website to read the list of trigger warnings. Hi everyone, my name is Terry Westwell and today is Tuesday, which means it's time to discuss our Panic at the Book Club book of the week, which is Hooked by Emily McIntire. If you like romance, fantasy, or even thriller, basically anything fiction book related, then I suggest you head on over to the channel's intro video, where you can find out more information on how you can take part in this online book club. We announce books at least 4 weeks in advance, and we accept your bookish feedback in a wide manner of ways. Post your comment below a video, send in a voice note, or even send me a short video clip of you discussing the book. Alternatively, you can just send me a direct message. James has always had one agenda: destroy his enemy, Peter Michaels. When Peter's 20-year-old daughter Wendy shows up in James's bar, he sees his way in, seduce the girl, and use her for his revenge. It's the perfect plan, until things in James's organisation begins to crumble. Suddenly he has to find a traitor in his midst, and his plan for revenge gets murkier as James begins to see Wendy as more than just a pawn in his game. Wendy's been cloistered away most of her life by her wealthy, cold father. But a spontaneous night out with her friends turns into an intense and addictive love affair with the dark and brooding James. As much as she knows that James is dangerous, Wendy can't seem to shake her desire for him. But as the relationship grows more heated and she learns more about the world he's in, she's unsure if she's falling for the man known as James or the monster also known as Hook. This is the spoiler-free part, where first we'll discuss any spoiler-free points before moving on to a clearly marked section of the video which will contain spoilers and more specifics about the book. As always, let's start with those chapter lengths, which were all a perfectly reasonable 5 to 10 pages. That, mixed with the fact that it was such an easy read, just meant that it was great to read a chapter or two before bed, unless you're anything like me and you just repeatedly say, oh, just one more chapter, until suddenly it's 3 AM. The book actually got a lot darker than I was anticipating. I mean, it wasn't anything like Haunting Adeline, but it definitely got dark at times. And although Emily McIntire has said that she would much rather you go into this blind, I would recommend that you look at the list of triggers on her website if you are unsure. The book does contain sexually explicit scenes as well as mature and graphic content, so if you are planning on reading this book, then that is something to consider. Although the book cover isn't as bright and potentially appealing to a younger audience like some spicy books are, there still wasn't anything immediately on the cover to suggest that this book was only really, meant for a mature audience. And I know that there is immediately an author's note in there to say that readers' discretion is advised. However, I think it's much more likely that a parent will judge a book by its cover to conclude whether or not it's something suitable for the children to read. Not to mention that I actually got this book as a multi-pack. I got the full series, which was wrapped in plastic, so there was no way that I would have been able to read the author's note anyway without having to go online. And this was actually found in the store on a table full of other multi-packs that were suitable not only for children but for YA as well. I do just think that there should be something on the covers to make it a little clearer. I did enjoy the book itself. I thought that for the most part it was really well written, and I thought that the spicy scenes were also quite well written. Although I do have to admit that there was the occasional phrase or wording choice that appears in tons of spicy books that just makes me cringe. But there was also some beautiful writing as well, the occasional one-liner that would just make you fall even more for the characters. I'm just going to put it out there that this book was not a retelling, so if that is what you're expecting, then you are probably going to end up disappointed. Instead, it just took influence from the characters and from the story of Peter Pan and made Wendy and Hook this potential love interest. If I had to compare this to any other book, it would probably be something like The King of Wrath or the Twisted Love series by Anna Huang. Although this book does contain quite a bit of spice, I would also say that it is a lot darker than those books. As I said, it's definitely not quite as dark as something like Haunting Adeline, but it definitely has its moments. It's not totally dissimilar. Which, if you liked the fairy tale influence, then I'd probably recommend Alice by Christina Henry, which is her dark Alice in Wonderland inspired novel. I believe Christina Henry also has a Peter Pan themed one. I do have it, but I haven't read it yet. I will say that although these books have the fairy tale influence, it doesn't have the spice or the romance that Hooked has. Now moving on to that part of the video where I suggest if you haven't read this book yet, go do that first, because beyond this point there will definitely be spoilers. It was on precisely page 130 where I officially made my guess, writing it into the pages itself that John was in fact James's half-brother and the reason why James's parents died in the first place. It did occur to me that maybe Peter did also kill Wendy's mum for the infidelity, but at that point I was still kind of holding out hope that he wasn't all that bad, like he couldn't be that heartless. I will also say that it got to a point where Hook crossed a line where I was like, he ain't coming back from that. But apparently he did. I mean, it was foreshadowed that Hook would kidnap her, and they even joked about Stockholm Syndrome. I really liked connecting the dots and the links to the original Peter Pan world. I mean, Wendy's nickname being Little Shadow, and Hook not actually having a hook, but using a hooked knife instead. Like, I liked that the croc had a ticking clock. I thought it was all a really creative way to incorporate certain elements, and while I do think it could have been a really good standalone book, completely separate from any of the Neverland things, there's something to be said for using the influence from the villains that we already love. I mean, as soon as Smee started acting cagey, I thought that it was pretty obvious that he was at least in on it. I did suspect Moira. I mean, I knew that there had to be another female character involved, so I did also suspect Wendy's friend from the coffee shop. Although I feel like that would have had a lot more explaining to do and potential for plot holes. I really liked that ending. I mean, I thought it was really sad that Wendy had to be the one to do it, and Hook kind of missed out on his opportunity for revenge, I guess. But at the same time, I thought it was a really nice moment that Hook finally had someone that would choose him for a change. I will say that I'm not the type of person who needs or even massively appreciates a completely closed off, complete ending. I don't think we needed the extra chapters into the future. Like, I don't need to know that they had kids and that they're still hot for each other 10 years down the line. I like to leave it to my own assumptions, but I guess a lot of people must like it because it is something that you do see a lot, especially in romance. I guess I'm also just used to reading stuff like romantasy, where it's likely you'll get a second and third, or maybe even a fourth book, so that's not even really necessary. So as for the question, would I recommend the book? Absolutely. But as I said, for anyone who does have any triggers when it comes to slightly darker books, I would advise going to the author's website to read the list of trigger warnings. It was really easy to read and it had some great plot twists. I really liked how the author incorporated certain elements from the original Peter Pan in such a creative way. I also really liked how the author didn't try and turn Hook into something he wasn't. Like, you were still aware that his character wasn't exactly the hero, but I don't know, villains deserve some love too. So, will I be reading any more by Emily McIntire? Absolutely, yet another bargain find where I was able to get the full series as a bundle. I can't wait to start the next ones. I believe they're inspired by The Lion King, The Wizard of Oz, which is my favourite, Aladdin, and Hunchback of Notre Dame. And I think there's also one that's kind of Little Mermaid themed as well. But let me know what you thought. Did you enjoy the book? Next week we'll be discussing The Silent Patient, so don't forget to get your comments and thoughts in by Monday the 23rd of September at the latest to be a part of the discussion. You can now do this on YouTube, TikTok or Instagram. The following week will be Icebreaker, but don't forget if you do need a little bit longer to read a book, we do now list the next 4 books down below, along with the discussion dates. That way you can choose the genre that best suits you, and the best time frame to read it in. Thank you all for joining, and if you like this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, it's always appreciated, and I will see you next week. Bye!